I have 5 full-length novels out, and then I think 4 short stories published now. Yeah, so there's 2 series. I have a sci-fi series, and then the other one's a science fiction fantasy crossover. So the Creation of Jack has 3 books, and The Lost Empire is the one that has 2, which The Citizen just came out. So
So you're straight up science fiction author.
pretty much, I veer into fantasy, but I'm very much heavily on the science fiction side. Yeah,
What brought you there?
I love. I don't know. I've always grown up on science fiction. My parents watched a lot of Star Trek when I was younger.
Yeah,
Um,
that was my gateway too, honestly. Secret and them as well. Actually, my God, my dad just I think 1984 was my gateway, just as a year.
oh,
But Star Trek for sure, right? I mean, do you remember your first episode?
I don't remember my first episode, but I remember, and it was Next Generation
Oh,
that my
really?
parents loved. Yes, and it was
Interesting.
actually. I watched that before the original because I
Oh
just remember
man.
Patrick Stewart and
Yeah. How do you recover from that? You watch the you obviously watch something superior to the original series, but you have to watch the original series. Do you go because me, that's all I had.
yeah.
I had marathons occasionally of the original series, and then finally the next generation came out, and it was what it was. But I mean, I didn't have to go back. I mean, can you go back and you watch the original series?
Recently, I was telling myself I should see more. I have watched episodes of it.
What's your
I
thought?
think some of the movies I enjoy more than the
Oh yeah,
shows.
the movies
Some
are
of the
good.
original movies are really good, and I like those a lot. So
I'm one of those people that just like them all, though. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
some of them are better than others, but I mean, it's just nice having Star Trek,
yeah.
except for the J.J. Abrams verse.
Do you not like any of those? I don't
Don't
even
think so.
remember.
Don't think so. And they're going to be
Yeah.
doing the Spock thing again in Discovery, the season coming up, where they have an actor
Oh,
coming in and playing in that character. And I don't like that. I don't think I like that.
I
James
don't.
Bond or Superman, I mean, Batman, I guess they're these iconic characters that the
Yeah.
actors are constantly being changed or whatever. But oh, how do you feel? Do you like the new stuff? Do you like the
I like
J.J.
parts of
Abrams?
it. I actually recently rewatched the first Star Trek, the first new one, and was like, "Oh yeah, this is better than I remembered." It's
Interesting.
but I'm not probably not a diehard Star Trek fan as I am Star Wars.
Okay.
I do not like the new Star Wars movies very much at all, unfortunately. The Star Trek
At
ones
all?
I can have fun with. Well,
Did you
I
like
like
them? Did you like them the first time you saw them, or was it immediately, this is disgusting, and
no,
threw up,
that's a
started
strong word.
fighting somebody right there in the
There are
theater?
again, I shouldn't say that. There are aspects of them I like, but there's a lot of them I just really feel disappointed about.
But did it happen
I
immediately, or did it live with you? Did it like, I hate this
not
immediately, or was it like, ah, you know what? For me personally, it was a distaste eventually. It's like,
there's
that
a
wasn't
mix.
very good.
Yeah. The Force Awakens, I rather enjoyed in theaters, but it's kind of lost its luster over time. But
Yeah.
like, what was it? Rogue One, I hated immediately,
Immediately?
and Solo too. I was immediately just like pretty early on, like, no, this is not working.
I totally love them when I watch them in the theater. I love
That's
them in
funny.
the theater. I love every single one of them. And I tried to watch The Last Jedi. Is that the last one that came out, The Last Jedi?
Yeah,
Solo
I
was the
think
last
so.
one. The Last Jedi was the last of the series,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I loved it. I thought it was really fantastic. And I tried to watch it on Netflix. And I don't know whether it's the Fire Stick, that
That's
soap
hilarious.
opera kind of thing that HD TVs do, but it was
Oh,
so horrible. It was so bad.
there are scenes from like again, I say there's scenes in all of them that are pretty fun and well done. And The Last
Yeah.
Jedi, some of the battle sequence, like the opening battle sequence of The Last Jedi, was probably my favorite part of the movie.
Right?
But
There's some good
then,
stuff. I mean,
yeah,
I don't understand what's going on with these characters. They
yeah,
just
there's
don't seem to have like a good map of what they're doing. They're like, I mean, I could like go on Twitter right now and change Star Trek or Star Wars 9 because I got
yeah,
so upset about something. It seems like there's no dedication to their story or craft or whatever.
yeah, and there's just like so many, I don't know, lulls, strange. I don't know, the pacing strange. There's just a strange like I don't like they don't want to commit to
Yeah.
anything. So they
It's
try
not
to put
over.
in
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
Disney made their money back. So, I mean, these are going to be around for a while. And I really think I unfortunately think the problem is Kathleen Kennedy.
Oh,
I think she's
I
too
don't know.
attached,
You might
right? I
you
mean,
might
I
be
think she
right.
loves it. I think she loves these movies. I mean, they started her career, didn't they? I
Mm,
can't
I don't know much about her, so I couldn't say.
remember.
But I still hope like I'm hoping the ninth one is better than the other ones I've been, but we'll see.
What is it that when you're writing, are you looking at these science fantasies? So, I mean, I consider Star Trek a science fantasy too, because it's based on fictional tech that doesn't exist and probably will never exist,
Yeah.
magical stuff. So you can put that fantasy tag there too. These are two really iconic science fiction or science fantasy franchises. Is that your goal with your writing? Are you hoping to achieve some kind of gigantic world in which multiple generations of people can play in?
I've not yet. Maybe down the down the road. That's a pretty big. I
People
do
do though, don't
like.
they? I mean, if you look at Orson Scott Card, that dude has been writing the what's it called? This series, the little
Yeah,
kid and the
Ender's
bugs or
Game.
whatever, Ender's Game for his
Hmm.
entire life. The guy's like 70, and that's all he's done is write Ender's Game books.
Yeah, actually, he's had a lot of other stuff. I just don't think
Has he?
anything else has caught on. Yeah.
I did a
Um.
podcast on him specifically, and it just was so surprising how much of his work was on that one series. I mean, as an
Yeah.
author, you're going in the series route too, though, aren't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I went in
I'm
slowly, but I'm really loving it now. And I actually do have some plans for my Creation of Jack series to extend it more than I thought I would. So I'm kind of leaving the door open and I can see myself going further with it, but I'm going to take it one step at a time because there's a lot of stories to tell.
What I liked about your website was the tagline on top, answering life. What is it? The universe's biggest questions, and what did
Yeah,
you say?
using science fiction and fantasy to answer life's deepest questions or something like
I
that.
love
To
it.
ask.
I love it.
I don't
Ask,
claim to answer.
answer, right?
To ask. Yes.
What kind of questions are you asking?
Um, I think looking at a big theme in a lot of my books is about identity and even looking at the value of or like what makes us human. But also like looking at human relationships on and what breaks people and what causes people to step up, what causes people to change. Like looking at I do all of my stories are very character focused. So looking at what makes them into the people who they are and what makes them change and become different people, kind of a lot of psychological focus, but also a lot of philosophical focus because I'm just a philosophy buff, so I love taking kind of some of these basic philosophies that and classics, even just like utilitarianism, and playing them out of like what would it look like for someone to like subscribe to this philosophy when they have technology at their disposal, and you just kind of put things together like that, and it's really fun to play with.
So, where does the love of philosophy come from,
I don't know. I mean,
or the interest in it anyway? I don't know if you could actually love philosophy. It's kind of like
no,
taking a hammer and slamming your head into it.
no, it's
Not the opposite way around.
fantastic.
Taking the hammer and going bam, bam, bam.
So when I don't know, I've always had a very inquisitive mind. I don't process verbally as well as much. Like I'm a big analytical thinker, and even when I was like 5 or 6, I just remember looking around and thinking like, what if the colors I see, like my brother doesn't see them that way? Like, what if he sees them different? And there's no way for us to know if we're even talking about the same colors when we say red. And just
That's
thinking
pretty
about like
cool.
what's real for other people might not be real for me. And I think, I mean, I traveled a lot as a kid, and
Uh,
I grew up outside
what?
the United
What's a lot?
States.
Where'd you go? Where you grew
Um,
up?
so in
Answer me
South,
now. Stare at the light.
actually on the island of New Guinea in the South Pacific.
Okay, is that how you know Mrs. Perazzi?
Yes, well, we didn't know each other back then, even though we grew up on the same island, which is hilarious. But when we connected, it became a, oh my goodness, you understand, because we both lived it. So it's very
I can't even
different
imagine that.
experience.
Because I mean, you go to Polynesia or one Polynesian island. That's not where you go, right? You go to Hawaii. You go to like French
For
Polynesians
vacation.
or something. But you don't
It's
go to Papua New Guinea, right? Papua New Guinea's scary, is it?
it's like kind of like the Wild West. No,
Right.
a little
Is
bit
it?
though. But
But
imagine
with
a
Maori,
very not even American culture, it's very different. So
with
it's
Maori culture, where they're like all about like fighting you and eating all of your organs and whatnot after they're done.
yeah,
I don't know.
there's some fascinating the culture there's so
It's really awesome.
fascinating. And when you grow up with that and then you come back to America and you kind of compare them, you're like, why is American culture different? And I think that's part of why, to me, I've just always asked these questions. Like,
So interesting. I've only met
yeah.
one Maori person in my life, and he scared the crap out of me. He was he scared the living crap out of me. He like I outweighed him like 50 pounds. I mean, I was much bigger than him, but he came downstairs and at this hostel that I worked at and complained about the heat in New York City. The pipes bang all the time. Where are you from?
Where am I from?
Yeah, where do you live?
Oh, right now I live in Idaho. I'm like, I don't know how to answer that question clearly. I live
Yeah,
in
where are you
Idaho
from?
right now.
Earth? You have
I
Idaho. I've
am
been there
from Earth.
before.
Well, yes.
But it's not like the New York City, the pipes bang. It's like we have
Oh, okay.
like they turn the heat on, just bang incessantly, and they move. I mean, it's really freaky. And I think he was drunk, and he came downstairs, and he was like angry at me for the pipes banging, and he wouldn't accept my explanation for it, and I had to call the cops to have him removed. I
Oh,
was
sorry.
looking back on it, 'cause
Island.
I didn't know then about Maori people and how they like that eye contact thing, and
Oh,
and like the other things that go along with the culture. I mean, it's very like militaristic or martial, isn't it?
I don't know too much about Maori culture. I think it. I mean, I watched Whale Rider and I loved it, but that's all I know.
So
But
what kind of people did you work with or not work with but live with in Papua New Guinea?
so they're much more related to like the Aborigines of Australia.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I mean, the rest of
It's more
yeah,
like, oh, really? I'm a complete idiot. No
they're
clue what I'm talking about.
Melanesian. Yeah, they're
Oh, okay.
technically they're Melanesian. And so I mean, there's hundreds of different tribes, and historically, yes, a lot of them have a history that's a bit more aggressive and violent. Kind of fighting to survive and stuff like that. But since kind of Western civilization, globalization has moved in a lot more, and a lot of missionaries and nonprofits have done a lot of good work over there. It's not as common. It's not like you go over there and expect to be, run into headhunters. It's not as common. Maybe there's a few left hiding in the jungle,
Really,
but
at one point, headhunting was something that you could find in Papua New Guinea. I'm looking at a
oh,
map
oh
now.
yeah,
I
oh
knew it
yeah,
was near Australia. I didn't really actually realize that those the same people there, though. The whole region
yeah,
is fascinating.
yeah.
It's really fascinating.
They say there used to be a land bridge between the two of them, and that's how they think they got up there.
It's
So
crazy, our
yeah.
world. So I mean, you're over there with missionaries, and that it gives you a foundation, doesn't it, to deal with the rest of your life? Do you? I mean, you write about science fiction. I wonder about this with Jill too,
Uh-huh.
because I mean, when you do science writing, you come across things that might be different than what you learned as a child. Do you do
Mhm.
those in your writing?
Um, that's a good question. I think
Which is basically me asking you to get personal. So,
yes, I know. I think there's a lot that um is just implied in my books that if you know me, you know where it comes from, if that makes sense. I
Mhm.
don't like go into it thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna, be so controversial and explore these heated issues." I think because my books are so people based, they're more about general personal emotional struggles that anybody would face versus bringing up like really specific doctrine or theology or
Yeah,
anything
it's so
like
hard to
that. If that
avoid that
makes
stuff,
sense,
though. For me,
huh?
though, it's so hard to avoid that theological input for characterization. I mean, you have to know where people are coming from because as a child, they had to have asked their dad what that building was or what happens when you die. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? They had to have come across it at one point, and they can't go into a future without having some kind of idea of spirituality, right? I mean, I don't think you become
yes.
you're not
Well,
an
I think
atheist all your life. Like, what's God? I don't know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
But I
I
mean, you have like a fundamental. You were like, I guess the people that you were with were teaching that as fact, right?
yeah. I think I know where my characters stand on a lot of issues like that. To me, it's not always important to the story, if that makes sense. I think I write. I mean, it is, but it isn't. I think it's interesting as a writer, you get to choose where you focus the lens.
Yeah.
Um, and I know what has shaped them and what they believe, you know, if they believe there's a God or not and all of that. Um,
Character
but
by character, right? I
yeah,
mean, they're not all believing
yeah.
the same thing.
And sometimes there's subtle hints in it, like, oh, this person probably believes this or this person believes that. But it's much more about watching them make choices. And that's stuff like I say you can infer. I don't often outright put it in there like, oh, this person believes this, but a lot of times you can pick up on it. But
Mhm.
you see much more just the events of their lives and you see the choices they make and kind of who they choose to be, and that tells a lot about what they believe, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Are you aiming for a specific audience or just anybody who likes science fiction?
Um, yeah, anyone who it's kind of anyone who likes science fiction. I've noticed I tend to be a bit old school just with who my influences are, and versus like a lot of the modern trends. So I love Isaac Asimov and
Yeah.
a lot of the older science fiction
So
shows.
interesting then. I mean, if you love Asimov and you read the Foundation series,
I haven't finished it, but I'm
well,
working
you
my
know what
way
it is
through.
though, right? I mean, it's about this long generating society, right?
Well, it's a parallel to the fall of the Roman Empire, which I think is fascinating historically, how
I
it
wonder what
parallels
Asimov's
that.
beliefs were. He wasn't a religious guy. He was a humanist. I
Yeah,
know that, right? He
yeah, yeah.
started a humanist.
But it's
Um,
interesting how, because I picked this up the last time I was reading it, how much his work, even though he's a humanist, some of it um, almost seems to explore religious issues too,
has to, has to.
like the sovereignty, like some in Christianity, there's the whole thing between free will versus the sovereignty of God, and
Yeah.
like you can see that how he talks almost does that with this plan that Harry Seldon has. It's very interesting to me. So
I think the whole thing is really fascinating because you
yeah,
can really break it down, right? I mean, he had an idea. He wrote a story about entropy. The heat death of the universe being so there's going to be somebody there or something there that'll
yeah.
notice it's happening. I mean, that's incredibly fascinating that all this
Mhm.
information that we have right now could just go away.
And a lot of the
No more
more
energy.
classic sci-fi authors made lots of nods to religious literature and Christianity. And I think that's partly because it was so ingrained in our society back then, like
Yeah,
in
I
the
mean, the older you
60s.
get, the harder it gets to remove it. I mean,
Yeah.
who are some of the old school guys that you like?
Well, because I haven't read a ton, but I've noticed it in Arthur C. Clarke's work, and of course Isaac Asimov.
He was a
Um,
contemporary of Asimov. I would
yeah, they
imagine
were.
he was like they're just emerging outside of that thing too, where religion was the answer to everything.
Yeah,
There's a
and he's
God and a
hugely.
creator and
Oh
whatnot.
yeah, he's hugely. I would say very maybe more than Isaac Asimov. Clarke is very humanistic,
Yeah,
and if you've ever read Childhood's End, man, it's so I don't know, it's crazy. Some of the ideas he puts in there are just crazy. I don't know. It's
I'll
super
admit
interesting though.
it's hard to go back in time for me, science fiction, because I want to be on
Mm,
the cusp of what's being written now. I want to know
mm,
what's being written now, what concepts people are tackling, because the science is so now. You know what I mean? Science changes every day. You can
mm.
go and look on Google and find that things that he thought were completely wrong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, I don't have a problem with that of being like,
Really,
oh, this story's based on like science that never actually happened because I love watching them play out the hypotheticals because I'm huge on hypothetically. Okay, but what if it had happened this way, and then watching how it affects people. So it
that's
doesn't
interesting.
really.
That's really
Yeah,
fascinating. So the wrong-headed ideas, you want
yeah,
to see them be right for a minute and see what happens. That's
yeah,
fascinating way to look at the science, because I mean, people are kind of looking for a way to, and well, as an example, Discovery, the
yeah.
Star Trek Discovery series that's coming out now, they're coming up to the original series, I think, on the timeline. So they have
Oh,
to kind of justify why things look so different in the original series. I mean, for some reason, you have to take everything canonically or some bullshit.
it's a
Not the
little bit
it's
intense
like
what they're
the
doing. I
color
haven't
scheme
haven't seen Discovery at all, so I don't know what they're
at
doing with
all.
that at all.
Okay.
But the way they're even changing the new Star Trek series and trying to then tie it all in with like the alternate timeline or something, I don't know. It's kind of getting really complex.
I'm totally about getting new Star Trek.
Yeah.
Give me a new Star Trek. I like it. Don't put new actors and old characters though. That to me
Mm.
is bullshit. You have a guy, he's alive, he's 90 years old,
Yeah.
and he probably could still be Captain Kirk if you let him. I mean, God, that dude is so honorary. He blocked me on Twitter.
Oh,
I didn't
I'm
even do
sorry.
anything. It's like the biggest. Um, it's my only claim to fame on Twitter is that I'm blocked by William Shatner.
Well, I'm sorry. I think there's so much room to expand. I don't think they need to rehash the
No,
same characters over and over. But
it's a very interesting world. I mean, we're
yes,
coming up on the fact that none of that stuff is realistic. You know, warp
mm,
drive, can we bend space like that? I
bummer.
mean, yeah, do you write about technology,
I do
advanced
see.
technology?
I I tend to, which I think we kind of talked about this at the beginning. I love fantastical science fiction. This is how I've recently decided to call it. Because I mean, there's like people brand it into like soft sci-fi and hard. I'm much more of a, I guess I'm a
Yeah,
soft science fiction writer, but
I call it science fantasy.
fantastical science fiction, science
Fan-
fantasy, whatever you want to call it.
I like it. I mean, that's what works, right? Because I don't know shit
Yeah.
about. I don't know anything about science.
I
I
mean,
mean, I got an English
it's
degree.
interesting to like take stuff that is super realistic, maybe just like 5 years from now and play out those implications. But honestly,
That's
I don't know.
interesting
I
too.
just like having fun and like going crazy sometimes and being like, this is like 5% of it is based in reality, but we're just gonna pretend and expand it and then go play with it and see where it goes. So I
Do
kind
you
of like to
add
do that.
any like metaphysical elements to your fiction? Do you play with a god or spirituality or reality bends between planes or something? I mean,
Um,
are you just this is reality, guns and explosions? I didn't read your
eh,
fiction. I'm
no, that's fine.
sorry.
I I think maybe a little bit of that in my Lost Empire series,
Mhm.
but and I might explore more of that in future. And right now it's not super. It's more based on our reality, just like in the future or with more technology, that kind of thing. But I'm starting to branch out a bit more into explore some other interesting. I don't know. So we'll see where we go.
It's real. I just love the idea of that. I mean, when you look back in history and how people dealt with sciences and whatnot,
Yeah.
it always had a magical element to it.
Yeah.
I love to make it
What
real. You know, I like to
I
make
love I love that too. I'm trying to think of who was it Kepler? Some of those early scientists believed, or even Newton believed.
they're very religious, right? I mean, they
Yes,
had a whole religion. I mean, they had a whole God. They believed in the whole Trinity thing. I mean, they
yes.
believed everything. That wasn't that was there was a magic in their world. They were going someplace when they died. 100 freaking percent there was a devil and a hell. I don't know actually. That was
I
probably
think
politicized or whatever. But these people were playing around with a large amount of magic in their lives, right?
well, I think it's so interesting how some of the early mathematicians literally believed mathematics was like a whole almost like a holy God's way of explaining how the universe works. You know, to
It
explain
is though, isn't it?
everything.
That's so funny.
Yeah, which is super
So
interesting.
awesome. I love that so much. I don't think I've ever heard that before, but that's really fantastic. A way
Yeah,
a
and
person said
they
this is the language of the universe. And it is the language of the universe. It's the way
yeah,
physics works and geometry and all that good stuff. It's just beautiful. That's really wonderful. I like that a lot.
yeah, and
Can you tell? I got real excited.
I'm trying to think of what they called themselves, but there were people who I think they had a name for it, and even Newton thought like to he explained the law of gravity, but there was even a point,
Well, at
and
that
there was
point, that guy deviates, doesn't he? Because when he does that, when he creates calculus, or was it calculus he invented it?
I think so.
He moved away from God. Whether he acknowledged it or not, he
Mm.
separated himself from that fabric of this is a divinity to this is actual stuff. I can figure it out if I put the right math behind it.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on his life or anything like that, but I remember there were points where he would just basically be like, and there's a point where you can't calculate anymore. Maybe this was before he invented calculus. But I think it's interesting how when they got to the end of what they knew, there were things they were more than willing to just explain by religion or mysticism or any of that. But so I recently wrote a short story for an anthology where so Descartes used to theorize that there was a particular gland in the brain where the soul connected with the body. Um,
Pituitary. No, wait. Pituitary. Wait. It's in the middle of your forehead.
it's
It's the
not the
pituitary.
it starts with I don't think it's pituitary, but it starts with a P. I can't think of it right now. I know what it is though because I had to. but of course I can't remember. Anyway, but you know what I'm talking about. So I
I
recently
know
wrote
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
a
and it's just gonna drive
story
me crazy
where
until I figure it
or you
out.
keep thinking. I wrote this story where it's like solar system's been populated, so it's in the future, right? And
Yeah.
these special military forces, they kind of they go through like surgery and different kind of procedures in order to be able to kind of
Oh,
upgrade
pineal.
their yes, pineal, the pineal gland.
Pineal.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what it is. And part of it, that it messes with their epithalamus, where the pineal gland is, as they go through this procedure. And so there's kind of this question in it of, do they lose their soul in the process? It's like humanity's gotten to this place where they're starting to mess with the brain in that particular. So to me, I tied it in because I've always loved Descartes and I thought his work was interesting, and so I tied it in there for fans. If they know Descartes, they'll be like, oh my goodness, that was Descartes who theorized that.
Yeah, I mean
So
that stuff is fascinating. That's exactly
yeah,
what I'm talking about, that metaphysical
yeah,
type of grasping, but not grasping, but that meld between science and
yes.
religion. Because
So that
that the pineal gland does that. I mean,
yeah,
that's that link supposedly between near death experiences
I
and
know.
potentially the afterlife. I mean, it's just that thing, but that's turned out to be bullshit. I don't think
A
it's
lot of people
necessary.
say that, but I'm like, do we really
Nobody
know?
knows. I mean, when you get into the subject, they're like, do you know 100% where the
Yeah,
consciousness is in the body, or why
I
it actually is
know.
that I'm me and you're you and I have no connection to you whatsoever?
Yeah.
Or my dog or this wall. I mean, we're all supposedly made out of the same thing. If you break us down small enough, we're all
Yeah.
like quarks or whatever. Or the
Yeah.
universe
So
just basically made solid in this weird shape called me.
yeah.
It's fascinating if you
I
think about
I
it.
would love to explore it more. This is just a short story called Striker, but to me, I want to take the universe and go more with it. And I can see
Yeah.
myself exploring more things like that because I had so much fun with it, and I was like, oh my
Mhm.
goodness. So
Because I mean, it opens up so many realms because it removes impossibility.
yeah.
I think it just gives you whatever you want in terms of creativity. I mean, I
Yeah.
had a character in a story that got picked up. It's actually recorded. If you look at my website, it's God, I can't remember what I called it. But it's about a person who's deliberately looking for a way to rift the universe and get into
Oh,
contact with another god and destroys everything in the process just so she can be, killed in the presence of her divine one or whatever. I love
wow.
Lovecraft. Do you know
Oh,
Lovecraft?
I don't. I've heard the name, but I haven't read anything.
I think this is your cup of tea. He writes
Hmm.
horribly. I don't like how he writes. I mean, I'm very stodgy in terms of I hate the old people. You know what I mean? I don't like writing. I don't like reading the old purpley
Oh, old
prose.
prose. Yeah.
I just don't think it works in today's world. I mean, if you want to get the language, you have to read who's writing today, right? They're
Yeah.
just going to hurt, I think. I don't
A
know.
lot of people struggle with it. I think it's true. I enjoy it a lot, but it's true
Do
when
you?
I've been reading a lot of modern and I go back, it takes me a while to get
Drives
into
me
it
crazy.
again. Like I'm reading right now, I'm reading Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne,
Hmm.
and it took me the first couple of chapters. I was like, I don't know about this, but I'm loving it now.
And now
So
it's a translation too. That's not even well, I
yeah,
mean, I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
Who's
it's
your
true.
opinion on translations?
So,
Somebody's
but
taking those words and making them a little bit different than potentially was intended, or simplifying them, or making them
yes,
more complex. I mean, it's hard to say. It's frustrating. I would love to read Jules Verne in the original French.
that
I had
would
no clue.
be.
Yeah, no wonder you and Perazi are friends. I mean, that's one of her favorites too.
Oh, really? I didn't think she liked Verne that much.
We did a podcast on Verne. We've done
Oh,
a bunch of podcasts together, and a few
yeah,
of them have been on these old authors, Jules Verne, and then his contemporary in England. What was his name?
H.G. Wells.
Yeah, that's the guy.
He's next on my list. I haven't read much by either of them.
I mean, I've seen the movies, right? I mean, how can you avoid that? I'm a big movie fan. In fact,
Yeah.
that's Arthur C. Clarke to me is 2001: A Space
Space
Odyssey.
Odyssey.
And he
So,
didn't have anything. I mean, he basically wrote the novelization based on the movie that Kubrick already had in the can. So
oh, I
really,
didn't know that.
the only work I'm familiar with him for is the work that Kubrick inspired.
Huh.
So I need to read more Arthur C. Clarke. And
Yeah.
what's his famous one?
Childhood's End.
Yeah,
You
I need
should
to read
read
it.
it.
People say it's
It'll
amazing. How's
it'll
the
bend
science
your
hold?
mind. It freaked
Yeah.
me out, man, but I think yeah, it's super interesting too.
I think I'm also stuck in this modern curse of waiting for the next like addicted television show or something.
Oh man. Yeah.
Nothing's out there right now that I'm enjoying. Are you watching anything on TV that you like?
Um, I've been I've been kind of in the same rut. I've watched started watching The Expanse because Paparazzi was raving about it, and I enjoy aspects of it, but it's not my like sweet spot. Um, so I'm just kind of I've been watching reruns a lot. I think like I said, I was looking into the older Star Treks and stuff like that to kind of I
It's
miss
hard.
like yeah the
It's a hard.
I feel like the 2000s had a lot of really good science fiction shows, and now it's like nothing.
The early 2000s.
Yeah.
I feel like now their GQ is trying to make all the science fiction and fantasy shows on TV. All these kids, right out of the modeling catalogs. They've got all the colors of the rainbow. They're all wearing like fashionable dystopian clothing. They're really good with weapons and fist fighting, and when they get punched, they don't even bleed or
It's
just
true.
roll on the ground. It's so bad.
There's a definite different brand of science fiction that's super popular right now that I enjoy sometimes, but I don't know, I miss some more of the old school. I
Game of
like
Thrones
that.
is good, right? Have you seen any of that?
What is it?
Game of Thrones?
I don't know. I don't watch Game of Thrones. It's
No.
yeah. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews, but I've just never been super interested. I think I don't
I-
know.
Is it the sex or the violence?
I sometimes I get turned off by violence. It depends on how much is in it, and I've heard it's pretty saturated with sex and
Oh
violence.
yeah, that's
And
horrible. There's scenes with people. Yeah, I'm not gonna tell you. There's scenes. There's horrible scenes.
yeah, that's what I've heard. So it's not, and it seems a bit too like going past drama to the melodrama, and where it's like people, you know what I mean, where like everything
Yeah,
changes so much.
violence
It's
porn.
chaotic. You know what I mean? It's not like
Hmm.
committed to a certain story. I don't know. So I'm
I
just
don't
not
know.
super.
I've read the first three of the
Oh,
books
okay.
after the series came out, so I'm a little jaded. I thought the first three read really well, and the fourth one was just not as good. I
Hmm.
didn't get a full connection to the characters. He didn't continue the through line with the original characters at all. It seems like he just jumped off to different characters
Yeah.
completely. I was like, wow, dude, what's going on? HBO money ruins people.
Yeah.
Ruins people. Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite fantasy author right now? Do you have one?
Um, modern or classic? No, I
No,
mean,
seriously, modern only. But who's your favorite fantasy
I
guy?
don't read
Are
a
you?
lot of modern fantasy, and this is true. Except maybe indie authors, honestly. I love C.S. Lewis and Tolkien,
Oh yeah,
and then I tried to read some modern fantasy and was like, I hate all of this. I tried to read Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series and really just
yeah.
could not get into it. But I'm enjoying a lot of indie fantasy right now.
I'll
But
tell you
that's
about
about
Robert
all.
Jordan. I have the fourth book of his Wheel of Time series on my
Hmm.
Kindle. I have all four of them, and I don't remember reading any of them, but I know I did. I remember the first part of the first book, and I read it like 1,000 times. It took me forever to get into that, and I know I read those four books,
Wow,
but I could not tell you what happens at all.
so sad.
I know for him, I mean, I don't know if it's the writing or me.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I know people are crazy about 'em, like, someone recommended to me, it's like, "You're gonna love it," but I just couldn't get into it, so
That's a
and
certain type
then
of fiction, though, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
I would think what's his name, Brandon Sanderson, kind of writes in that.
Oh,
He actually finished that Wheel of Time series himself, but he kind of writes in that way.
yeah, I wanna read some of his. I picked up something of his for free, but I never started it, but I
I
hear so
did
much
though.
about him.
I've started so many of his books, and I just
Really?
cannot get into them to save
Yeah.
my life. Maybe it's just a mentality thing right now because I have no problem reading something nonfiction, like
Hmm.
Homo Sapiens by that dude. I can't remember. I cannot pronounce his name. Was fantastic. It's basically just a book about human sapiens' journey
Hmm.
from beginning until now. Completely fascinating. Completely fascinating. Love it. By the idea that we are here as a species because of wheat, growing things in the ground and eating them.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, it's amazing. Little tiny farms and villages. It's like so cool.
Glad you enjoyed it. I um, I think I've realized I'm very picky about epic fantasy. If I'm gonna read fantasy, it's much more like, well, I don't even know how to brand it, but it takes, um I like sometimes like fairy tale or mythological retellings, like that kind of fantasy, if that's fantasy, right? Um, or
What
like
about
just more
what is it? Nicholas Ames? Did he write Kings of the Wild? Did you read that? That just
No.
recently. That was last year. He just came out with the sequel to it. I don't know. I mean, I like knowing where the trends are, not to hit them, but to know what people
Yeah.
are like enjoying. It's really difficult because I don't think anybody's reading anymore. I think that honestly is the biggest problem, is that it's such a niche hobby now.
Yeah,
Do
it's
you
a
read
bit.
books? I mean, you do. I try really hard. I have twins. Everything seems harder. Um, both me and my wife, we do not read it as much as we want,
Oh
unfortunately.
yeah.
Do you have children?
I don't have kids. I
So lucky.
read quite a bit, but even like not as much as some people. And sometimes I started my doing a Goodreads challenge because I wanted it's kind of a
Oh,
reminder for me to like
what is
read every
the
year.
what's the challenge?
You just kind of set a goal for the year, like this is how many books I'm going to read,
Oh,
and
interesting.
it's like an accountability. It's really helped me to keep reading more, to be like, okay, I need to get another book and read it. Because before that, I would like, I'd be like, oh, I want to read, and I never would. So
It's so interesting. I have the opposite problem. I am constantly collecting books and then never finish them because the next one is on my hand. I have started so many books, like, oh man, that sounds so good. I need to get that, and I
yeah,
open it and crack it, and I'll find something else. Oh
yeah.
wow, that sounds so good. I need to read that. Um, yeah, I distracted myself. So you are, I'm sorry, the number that you planned on reading this year, what was it going to be?
I think I did 35 this year. Yeah,
How
which
close are you?
honestly, I'm gonna make it. I think I'm at 31 or
Oh,
2.
good
Like
for
I'm
you.
yeah, but honestly, I think I'm gonna take it down next year because it was it stressed me out a little bit, and I was like, "This isn't supposed to be a stressful thing,"
No,
and it
you've got
doesn't.
like 5 weeks to read. No, you've got like 6 weeks. I guess you could read a book every 2 weeks now if you wanted to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'm more than halfway done with Journey to the Center of the Earth, and I'm reading another one. It's not out yet for my friend because then I'll review it for her when she publishes it. But so I'm gonna make it, but I like anyway. I like to get ahead. Maybe that's just the competitive and feel like, oh, I got a good window, so I might just go down to 30 next year.
I've joined this running challenge thing. Basically, you compete with yourself during the year, however miles. I started jogging again like 3 or 4 months ago, so I'm like 160 miles in and something like that. And I looked to see who the leader was, and the dude has
Oh, I think you cut out there. Hello, Brian.
16-year-old. So I alerted to my age when I see the number one, and that number one in my area. I'm so far this year. That equals a day. How many miles do you?
Sorry, Brian, you're cutting out quite a bit.
Oh, was I? Boy,
Yeah.
you engaged there. I felt very alone in my conversation.
You said you were running thousands of miles, right?
No,
That's
I
what
did
I
not. I
got.
said I ran 160 miles, and the number one guy competition 1,000 miles, and it was
Wow,
6,000 divided by 365 is what he runs 16 miles a day.
that's intense. I don't know that I
That's
want to. It's
be
a
his
lot.
friend exactly.
That's
He'd be always running.
you're giving up a lot of your day to do that. It's commitment, man.
16 miles. I mean, let's say he runs 4-minute miles. That's really fast, by the way,
That's
and he's probably not
miserable.
doing that. It's still going to take him 65 minutes to run 16 miles, and that's a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't want to be him at all. I'm okay. I'm very slow, and I'm injured right now, so I'm not
Oh,
even running.
you sound
And
like you're
it's
doing
by
great.
injured, I mean I'm being lazy. So
Yeah, I know it's like torture. I used to run for a while, like I was a jogger a bit, but it's like, man, I've heard I don't know, it's not for me.
it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's hard on your body.
It can get addictive. And plus, I'm in New Jersey right now, and we don't have any sidewalks. I've never lived any place without any sidewalks, and there are no sidewalks in New Jersey. So when I run, it's on the street.
Oh
I
man.
really think I'm gonna die.
They have these bright green vests or something,
Yeah,
reflectors.
exactly. I think they'll aim for me. I've actually thought people were aiming for me before and turning around to aim for me again.
New Jersey is pretty sketch. Those people, man.
I know. Where in Idaho are you?
In the Boise area.
Oh, Boise. Okay, I've actually been through there. You're just north of Nevada and south of or west of east of Oregon. It's beautiful country. I thought it was wonderful.
It is beautiful. Yeah, we're actually just north of Utah, like exactly, and then
Oh wow.
Nevada's a bit farther west. It's such a diverse state. I really enjoy it. And right now it's all beautiful with fall, so it's good.
So you guys have you vote today?
Yeah, man, election day.
It's a big one. I don't know
Yeah,
what's gonna happen in our little country of ours.
we'll
Uh,
see.
say again?
I said we will see.
We will see. It is very scary. So what are your plans going forward? I don't know clue when we actually started this podcast. Do you?
I think it was like 11:20, maybe. I don't know.
11:20. Okay. So we're
Um,
working on the last quarter point, or quarter hour.
Yeah, so I'm the editor-in-chief of the Phoenix Fiction Writers, which is a marketing collective, and we have an anthology coming out in like 2 weeks. Um, so
What
which has
really?
the short story I was talking about. Yeah, and Jill Perazzi's got a short story in it too. It's called
That's awesome.
Antiheroes. So I've been like working like a crazy woman on that. Um, and then I have tons of publishing plans for next year. I don't know. I thought I should just go crazy and publish a lot. So, and I'm also doing NaNoWriMo right now, which was a last minute decision, but it's been very challenging, but really fun too. So
So the anthology is interesting.
yeah.
I know a group of people are looking at starting one themselves. I would love to edit something like that. I think that'd be amazing, but I would probably get bored reading all the stories and never collect enough. How many did you collect?
Oh, we only have seven. That's
7.
yeah. It's not like a huge thing. That's we have 8 members now. I want our next one to be a bit bigger to include some more authors, but it is a lot of work. So we're working our way up.
So basically, you took whatever was submitted, or was there a choosing process that you went through?
Yeah, well, this one's only internal. Maybe in future we'll expand it. So I know all these authors and their work.
Hmm.
And we chose a theme. We voted on a theme together, and then we've been working on it for a long time. And they're actually all fantastic. I know. I guess there was a chance that it would be one or two. I'm like, what in the heck is this? But I really love them all. It's a fantastic anthology. So I'm super
Um,
excited.
what what was your theme?
Antiheroes?
Anti-heroes.
Yes. And so it's science fiction and fantasy because that's our marketing collective is spec fic. So there's some that are science fiction, some that are fantasy, but they're wonderful. They're so I don't know, they're so good. Really fun.
How does a marketing collective work?
Yeah, so I'm figuring that out.
You're supposed to be an expert. You told me you
I
had a marketing
know.
collective.
I heard about one and was like, oh, heck, I want to do this. Basically, we're all independent authors running our own brands and careers, but we market together. So we have a website, which is phoenixfictionwriters.com. So all of our books are on there. We have a podcast we do together. We help review and promote each other's work. We're doing an anthology. We're going to do like a big sale together in December. So it's basically like a support group kind of thing, but publicly we kind of almost have a brand together because we're all speculative fiction. We kind of have a similar writing philosophy. A lot of our themes cross over. So the idea is that if you like one of our work, you'll probably like other people's. And so it's easier for readers to find indie fiction they like, and it's easy for our readers to cross over. So we help each other out.
It's very interesting because what it sounds like to me, a collective, honestly, that's what you called it already, right? A
Yeah.
marketing collective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I've been looking at the Science Fiction Writing Guild. Just they have a list of publications that you need to meet the criteria of to get a membership of. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious. I mean, if you guys could make, like, say you sell this anthology and it works out to where you make like 6 cents a word a piece for each story that you put into it. I wonder if that would qualify you for membership into the guild.
I
And
don't
if
know.
it
I should look
would you
into
be
it.
interested in being a member of the guild if that were to happen, or have you ever looked into it?
I haven't really looked
No.
into it, but maybe I will. Yeah, I think I'm always kind of trying to learn more and figure out which direction I want to take my brand specifically. I don't. Is it only science fiction? Because we are technically a fantasy collective.
Speculative, I think. I think
Okay.
it's across the board. I don't think there's necessarily a fantasy guild. I think it's speculative fiction though
Okay.
across the. Yeah, I mean it's very interesting. I mean they it's a lot of those guys end up in the Writers Guild, which is the film part of it.
Oh,
Um, but I the guy who does Clark's World, which is a fiction publication, he talked about quality being the worst part of the process because he has to go through so many stories, and you're so desperate to fill your magazine and get the work out there that your quality could dip if you
yeah.
don't get the right number of stories given to you on a monthly basis. So it's really fascinating to work with a group of authors too over a course of a year to put a book together while you're publishing other stuff.
Yeah, I think it's super. I don't know. I've loved it. Yeah, we're coming up on our 1 year anniversary, which it's been really phenomenal. And obviously, we all retain our own rights. We're not a press or a publishing company, but it's been interesting to see how much it's boosted each of our careers separately. And there's a lot of interest, and we've got some big goals for next year. So I don't know. We're just going to keep going and learning.
Well, how did your first year work out? I mean, in terms of where you started to now, have you
I mean, I
noticed
don't
an increase, or was
I
it?
I don't know that I can, I should create a report. I don't know how many hard numbers I can give you, but we've seen a lot. We've seen individually readerships cross over, and some of our audiences expand individually because of it. We've seen some increased sales, a lot of interest, I think, from the community. So I'm interested to see how this anthology sells because I think it's going to be a bit of a little watermark, kind of to see how we're going. But it's been
So
good
who
so
does your covers on your books?
I do most of them myself.
So
Um,
the Civilization, the Citizen, you did that one.
I did that myself.
I
Yes.
love the effect of looking through a window.
Oh, thank you. Me
I think
too.
that's really neat.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
it's
Yeah.
where did you go to how'd you learn to do that? What are you using actually? That'd be the first question to make
Yeah.
them.
So when I started, I had very little idea how to do graphics at all. I've used Canva a lot. Recently, I found this program. Oh gosh, I see if I can. I'll pull it up because I always forget the name. It's called Photoscape X.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's really fantastic for doing any type of, and it's free. Well, there's a part of it that's free, and then you can pay for extras if you want to. But it does even the free part of it does a phenomenal job of editing, better than anything I've had so far.
Oh,
Anyway, so
interesting.
I enjoy that.
I use Photoshop.
Yeah, I
I'm not paying for the whole whatever it is. So I'll have like an old version of it or whatever.
my
Stupid
list
Photoshop.
of things I want to purchase like that is so long that
Yeah. I mean, I refuse. And that what is it like $40 a month? No, sorry, that's not happening.
yeah.
There's some
So
ridiculousness happening in your head that $40 a month is something that you can ask me for.
yeah,
Stupid
yeah, yeah.
Canadian.
Far and wide to find free or cheap options to get by on because it all that adds up so fast.
Yeah. So you make your covers, and I
Mhm.
thought I remember you actually listed yourself as the cover maker on your website, right? Because I thought it was like cover art by, and then it was like a username, right?
So I think you're thinking about my header image. Actually, KR
Oh,
that with the spray paint Galaxy. I did not do that. That was my sister actually. Um, so I wanted to give her credit for that there. Most of my covers are my own. I have one coming out in February that I did commission, which I'm really excited about. So
oh, interesting. How did you come about getting that job?
no, no,
Just
like I didn't get paid for. I paid someone to
oh,
do.
you paid somebody else. Oh, interesting. Oh yeah, you're right. KRD. Oh, Dawson.
Yeah. So my sister is an artist, and so I asked her to play around with some things for me. So she did that. I think it's up on my site now. The short story Nomad. She did that cover piece for me, which is coming out in January, and then she did that Galaxy spray paint, which I thought was super fun. So I put it up as my header.
Oh, this is spray paint. Oh, interesting.
Well, it's a mixed media actually. It's partially spray paint, it's partially other. I don't know all the details of that.
Oh,
So
interesting. So yeah, all these look like books. Out of Darkness, Into the
mhm,
Void, Under the Skin.
mhm.
Those are all novels,
Those
right?
are all novels, yes.
And the creation of Jack.
That's
It's one novel, but it's three books.
It's a one series, so it's one series with 3 parts to it. If that makes sense.
And then I love the Lost Empire
Yeah,
book
that's
covers. I think those are really, really neat. The Traveler and the Citizen. The Citizen was so interesting. I actually clicked on it,
oh,
you
good.
know, to read the blurb. I mean, these are really, are these new? Are they the newest books? The Citizen and the Traveler? Or no.
So it came out a couple weeks ago on October 20th. It's the second in the trilogy, so third book is slotted for next year.
It's interesting. So it's obvious that you're learning a lot
Yeah.
in terms of, because I mean, these books I think are very purchasable. They are beautiful covers. I love the title. I mean, it's The Citizen. They, like, ring some, ding some bells in my brain of things that I'm interested in. The Citizen, what's that about? Let's find out. I like this. I mean, what's the third one going to be called? Do you know yet?
It's The Guardian.
The Guardian.
Yeah.
And that's it for the
That's so
Lost
those
Empire?
no, that I mean, if I want I think for now that's just a trilogy. There are short stories though, and there's 3 down there that look a little thinner with character pictures on them that are for free if you sign up for my newsletter. There's more short stories coming. So at the end, I'm going to do a whole package with 3 books and multiple short stories to kind of fill out the little world. So
It might be a sensitive subject, but I went to a panel recently at the New York City Comic Con, and there were a bunch of authors talking about why they chose the names they do
mhm.
and the abbreviating of the first and the middle initial here. I'm curious whether or not you felt intimidated to be yourself on the cover, or was EB something that you've always gone by?
Yeah, that's a funny. I think when I started writing, well, I've always, I don't know, it may sound silly. I've always thought initials were super cool. Like some of my favorite authors.
I think you have a super cool name. I like E.B Dawson.
Oh,
It
good.
really looks good on a cover. And
Yeah, that's
EB, I mean,
who
you
I
sound like you should
am.
be famous already.
No,
E.B
well, thank
Dawson,
you.
who's that?
Like some of my
Go ahead.
favorite authors are C.S. Lewis and G.K. Chesterton. So right
Yes.
there, there's a pattern. And I think especially when I first started, I was a lot more insecure too, and I wanted to kind of remove it a little bit from my I like day to day identity, of like it's absolutely me, but to kind of not a pen name, but just to me make it feel almost more official in my mind. But I'm also super, I don't know, I just have this thing with names, like where I know when it sounds right. And to me, that's what sounded best, honestly, was E.B. Dawson. It sounded like, oh, that's an author name and that's something that I can get behind. So,
No, I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, that's something that people do all the time in today's world, and you don't want to get doxxed, right? I mean, you make up different names for yourself.
yeah. So there we are.
There we are, at almost at the end of the story, 2:16 in the afternoon with me. Where is it, like 11:16 with you?
12, 16. Yeah.
12:16. Okay. Man, I was in Boise one summer. It was like August, right after Michael Jackson died.
Oh,
I was a smoker. So I was smoking outside on this patio, and I put my cigarette out in this ashtray and went out there about 2 hours later, and every single cigarette butt in that ashtray had caught on fire, burned to an ash, and the ashtray itself had shattered into a million pieces. That's the
really?
only time that's ever happened to me, and I blame the horridness of Idaho summer.
It gets real hot here in the summer, but I mean, when you're April, May, and September, October, November are like glorious, and the
Are
winters are
they?
not. Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's just mild and like paradise here, and then the winters are mild, so that's what I like because I can't handle like tons of snow. We get a little bit, but it's not. You guys probably get way more than we do.
I was gonna say our winters are miserable,
Yeah,
miserable. When it snows, it sucks.
I would
Just
take
sucks.
a difficult summer over a difficult winter any
I
day.
don't know though, because I love being inside when there's no reason to go outside, especially when there's bad weather. I hate blue skies because they just make me sad. They just make me
Oh,
sad because they make me want to have to go outside, and I don't want to do that.
all right. Well, I hope you have plenty of clouds in the future.
Well, I do like to finish the podcast with just a few questions to, you know, finish up our conversation. And I What do you think the most difficult thing that you encounter in your creativity is?
Oh man. Oh. The most difficult thing. I mean, personally, as an indie author, I have to balance creativity with all the business side of it, and I think sometimes,
Do you?
yeah, because
Like
I
have to?
do.
Like you have to do that. There's no other way. Like, have you ever tried the traditional route, like to see if you can get your stuff out there? Because I had a guy tell me, Daniel Abrams, the guy who wrote The Expanse with whatever the other guy's name is, I can't remember. He said
Okay.
that he's a writer,
Huh.
not a publisher.
Yeah.
And that dinged with me. I'm like, dude, I don't want to publish. I don't want to market. I don't want to sell. I don't want to make things that aren't writing and art. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, do you want to do that stuff? Like, is it part of
Um,
you?
You've probably caught me on an interesting day because there are days where I'm like, I love it. I love all of it. It's challenging though. And I did query for a while and I considered going traditionally and I still consider trying to, in the future query to like small press, but I like having the control of a lot of the stuff that I do. So there's reasons I've chosen to do indie. However, it is pretty challenging some days and to balance the marketing and graphic design and all of that with creativity can be, I think, is a challenge, but it doesn't mean it's not worth it.
What about your short fiction? Do you ever think about sending that stuff in to magazines or whatnot?
I have been, I think,
You've been sending stuff in?
been thinking about it.
Oh, thinking about
Yeah,
it.
I know. But I've been thinking about it. I used to never do anything shorter than a novel for some reason, and recently, I think last year I started getting into short stories and love them. So I want to do
Yeah,
more. I'm looking at
I love
maybe
short fiction.
sending them into like magazine and stuff, but we'll see.
I,
So
I would recommend it. I mean, that's traditional. That's the route that you go on, and then you develop an audience. And God, you already have books out there. I'd imagine that it would just make you soar,
yeah.
and it
So,
tighten up your writing too. I mean, not that I know what your writing's like at this point. I am going to read at least The Citizen.
oh, okay, but I mean, if you don't, The Traveler's the first book, you might be a little lost if you jump into The Citizen.
Seriously, I cannot read The Citizen without reading The Traveler.
I mean, I guess you could, but I think I don't know. It'd just be a different experience. But it's up to you. You can take a gamble if you want to.
Well, I will ask you the next question, which is what matters most to you? What's most important to you
Wow.
in your
Okay.
creation,
You just
creativity?
in my okay in
Well,
my
man,
case.
life. I mean, if you want to answer it that way too, I'd love to hear what's most important to you in life.
Uh, I think in life, my faith and my family are huge. The biggest motivators and the decisions I make revolve around that. In my fiction, um, I my fiction is an outlet very much for processing a lot of what I've experienced in life and I've seen and things like that. So it's very much an emotional outlet. Um, but I think more lately, it's really been a priority for me to just have fun with it. To take risks in like the plot where before I would be like, oh, I can't pull that off, but now it's like, no, I'm gonna go for it.
Go
I'm gonna
for it. Yeah, I love that attitude.
and take the risk. So
That's really awesome. Yeah, I love go for it.
mm,
Just make it happen. How can you make it happen? I'll just skip that part and just write the end of it.
yep, yep.
And it's over. How did that work, guys? You
Yeah,
blinked and missed it. I love it. Yeah, that's what I love about fiction is that the rules really don't matter as long as you get the grammar right, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, so my last and my second to last question is what are you consuming right now and what would you recommend that other people consume in terms of movies, film, books, stuff like that?
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, I'm really enjoying Journey to the Center of the Earth. If you like classics,
The Disney version though, right? Which is better, the book or you've obviously seen the Disney version.
with, who is it? Brendan Fraser and, Josh,
No, are you what is
is
wrong
that what
with
you're
you?
talking about?
It's Kirk Douglas.
No, I haven't seen it. That was the only one I saw was the newer one, and it was kind of fun. I,
There's a newer version of 21,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
no, Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Oh, you're right. I am not talking about the right one. I'm so
I
sorry.
used
You're right.
to
That is
see
Brandon Fraser. The
yes.
original one is absolutely horrible, and you can avoid
Oh,
watching it.
Okay, I will. I have not read 20,000 Leagues or seen it. I used to see clips of it, like, on the Disney, like, montages they used to do. It terrorized me. I was like, "I'm never
Oh,
watching that movie,"
oh man.
but we'll see.
Those
Maybe
are my
I'll
favorite movies as a kid. That one, and then there's Mysterious Island, which is a Jules Verne book that I just freaking loved. Anyway, so that Jules Verne, you're in reinvestigating or re-exploring or exploring for the first time.
Yes.
Jules
So
Verne.
that's I'm enjoying it a lot. Um, what else am I I think I thought I mean, I recommend all of, my, fellow Phoenix fiction writers. They just
Where's your actually that leads me to the last question. Where can we find you on the World Wide Web? Where would you recommend people go to check out your work and interact
Yeah,
with you if they can?
so my website has I mean, I has a semi-regular blog. It has all my books, and that's ebdawsonwriting.com. Uh,
Writing, okay.
yeah, there's the writing at the end because it's a constant process. And then I'm on Twitter a lot. I interact with readers and other writers there. So if anybody loves Twitter, my handle is at EB Dawson Writing.
Yeah, Twitter is the author's hangout, isn't it? Facebook too. It's really surprising
Yeah, I don't
how
love Facebook. I'm trying to use it a bit more, but Twitter is so like the
I love
author
it.
community on Twitter is fantastic. They're so encouraging and inspiring, and just a lot of fun.
I just like Twitter. I like engaging with people.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, Facebook. It just seems I'm not a Facebook person either. I really don't have a big anything on there, footprint or whatever. But there just seems to be so many groups of writers. It's
I've heard
unbelievable.
I've heard a lot about writers groups on Facebook. I'm not really part of too many of them.
I don't think groups are mentioned, but I don't think Facebook likes you to be a part of a group because it limits their ability to give you information, feed you news or whatever. If you're in a group, you're going to go there and look at the wall. If it's going to be something strange, you're going to be like, nah, get out of here. I don't like you. So they
Yeah.
don't want you to be in groups, but groups are amazing. I really highly recommend them. Not that I use them, I know they're there. I look at occasionally their content. And it seems like people who are popular, I don't know. It seems like a click system too. I don't know, but I have enjoyed this conversation. It was really fantastic speaking with you. Thank you so much for being the first one willing to come back and talk with me after I canceled all those
Yeah,
weeks ago.
thank you for having me, Brian. It's been a lot of fun.